Hello everyone, this is part 21 of What If Naruto Was a One-of-a-Kind Genius, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto standing still in the forest of death, eyes closed, surrounded by trees and creepy shades that made the forest infamous. He was trying to visualize the surrounding area with his eyes closed, trying to train his senses once more. Being in this village, with no training, no physical battles to fight, it was a waste. He should have been away already doing something useful. He could not even train in peace, not that he needed any more hardcore training these days, unless there was a new jutsu he needed to learn. It wasn't that he had learned everything that needed to be learned. One never stopped learning after all, he was merely taking a break from the heavy training to rest his body. When you smell like that, you're easy to spot, Naruto suddenly said. Continuing this will only become an annoyance to me in the next seconds, and I would rather not have that. Anko jumped from the tree she had been hiding. I'm a little insulted about what you just said, the woman said, though her expression and tone said otherwise. Naruto did not turn to face the woman as he took his time to respond to her. I was talking about snakes and your undeniable thirst for B. I could feel your intent from that where you were standing, the urges to strike, as you lick your lips. Anko blinked. Actually, the thought had come to mind about attacking the blonde when he was not looking, but she had refrained from doing so when she saw that he wasn't moving. He hadn't even looked at her, how had he known? Perhaps he was merely making an assumption based on his past interaction with her. I was forgetting you're the brat who embarrassed Orochimaru in this very forest some years ago, Anko said with a smile. She was fond of that memory in the Sandaim's office. How she wished she could have seen it. She would have rolled all over laughing at Orochimaru. I don't know if I must be a brat, but I did engage Orochimaru in this forest, Naruto said as he turned to face Anko. Anko didn't move as she stared at the blonde. Well, he wasn't a brat, she could take that back, but she wasn't going to do it loudly. He was a man, and that bored mask deep in his eyes made her feel slightly excited. What are you doing here all by yourself? Have you grown old enough that now you can leave your mother's side? Naruto chose not to respond to the latter question, instead he responded to the first. I was fishing, Naruto said, and this is what I got, he said pointing at the former apprentice of Orochimaru. Anko tilted her head to the side as she thought over things. What do you plan on doing now that you have caught me? The woman played along, grinning madly in anticipation of what the blonde might say in response. Disappointedly, Naruto did not say what the woman wanted to hear. I'm going to toss you back where I found you and get out of here. Anko frowned slightly. You're bored, she said. Why don't we do something to make things fun? I'm also bored. The moment she said those words, Anko lunged towards Naruto, a kunai slipped into the right hand. Appearing slight above the blonde, she drove the kunai towards Naruto's face with every intention to pierce him if he fails to avoid the blow. Naruto reacted by grabbing Anko's wrist, stopping the kunai just in front of his face. His hold on her wrist was firm, almost like an iron grip, and Anko could not move her hand. The snake mistress suppressed a wince before raising her left hand. Two snakes burst forth, heading straight to Naruto's face. The blonde grabbed both snakes a bit viciously before snapping them in half. His bored eyes stared at Anko. Snakes are such dangerous creatures, aren't they? One vicious strike by one that is venomous and you are dead. Anko frowned at being disabled so easily. The blonde was not letting go of her hand and she knew that she could not escape his iron grip. She had tried it, but he had not allowed her to slip through, not even a little. Even though he did not look like it, he obviously possessed some incredible physical prowess. Naruto let go of Anko steadily, but the moment he did so, the woman spun around, lifting up her left foot. She aimed a high kick straight at his temple. Naruto reacted by moving back slightly, just watching the kick pass through his face, just inches away from hitting him. Even though he didn't wish to fight her, he didn't hold out both his hands in defense, getting the feeling that the woman would not back off even if he did that. You're familiar with Yugao and Kurenai, correct? That seemed to catch Anko's attention enough for her to stop attempting to hit the blonde. Yes, she said. You stole Kurenai's favorite student, but I have to say, you turned her into a fine kunoichi. I would have been proud myself. Of course, she would have made a few tweaks, personality-wise, but there was a massive improvement. Naruto ignored Anko's words. Perhaps he could say that he was a little proud with what he had managed to do with the Hyuga, but that wasn't the main point. His eyes were looking at something else in particular, the Hyuga's usefulness. If you are familiar with those two, then talking to you should not be dangerous. The blonde paused, eyeing the woman for a second. Perhaps I should consider this a little danger. Well, she did attack him for no apparent reason. When Danzo became Hokage, I felt that my time had come to an end because he was going to force me to become a weapon. I would be his little tool, just as you were Orochimaru's precious apprentice. I could not have that, and sir, I gathered a powerful ally and eliminated Danzo. Anko blinked. She wasn't surprised that he had managed to do something like that. It had become a gossip that the village leaders were hiding something about what had happened concerning Danzo. A single man had claimed to do it, but very little was known about him and his power, so it made it slightly hard to believe. There was also the fact that Danzo had just become Hokage. It was apparent that most clan heads didn't like the man and he had taken the power by force. Still, to think that this person had done it, more so when he was just a brat. Anko burst out laughing at the thought of it. She laughed so hard that she had to sit down for a moment to compose herself. Ridiculous things have occurred in this world, but this has just made my day, Anko said with a wide grin. She didn't have troubles believing that he had done it, even though Konoha gave a different account to the rumors. This very same brat had humiliated Orochimaru after all. He had been unrivaled as a genin and had once operated as an Anbu, not to mention he had trained with Uchiha Itachi. Anko drew eyebrows at the thought, but she just shook it off. Most clan heads suspected me, and they came to a decision to let it slide because really it was for the best for Konoha. Yet, there has been an impression that I am a dangerous person who must be watched always. Koharu and Homura have persuaded Hiashi to mistrust me massively. For now, there isn't much, but sooner or later, they will get my way. He could play a game of politics, that would suit him well since he hardly cared about most things and he wasn't afraid to play the manipulation game. Anko narrowed her eyes. It seems to me like you're requesting a favor, the woman said. But I don't do freebies, even if Yugao has grown quite attached to you and your family that she is living with you. My mother has even thought of adopting her to the Uzumaki clan, Naruto said with a shake of his head. But in essence, yes, I do need a favor from you. I have enemies in this village, and few friends. I could use a bit of friends. Anko snorted at the thought of friendship. He just wanted something from her. Nevertheless, he was still an interesting person to say the least. I do plan on Orochimaru one day, perhaps I might take you with me, Naruto said, his eyes facing up. Well, then, Anko, we will talk soon. Perhaps we might even do a mission together. Wait, Anko said. She didn't agree to anything, and yet he was speaking as if she had said it was a done deal. Why are you coming to me? Naruto thought about things for a moment before shrugging. It would be foolish to try to play the manipulation game with a sadist. The woman had experienced too much to be fooled. While neither of us cares for how the village has treated us, I think we are in a similar boat to be able to understand each other. You're also Yugao's friend. My mother wishes that those who are friends with Yugao be close to us as well, though honestly speaking, your bad tendencies wouldn't do well close to my mother. In any case, Yugao has been nothing but a trustworthy person, and I think it won't be bad to extend the hand to her friends. Of course, going by the logic that because Yugao was a good person then her friends had to be good as well, he was as good as screwed. It was just irrational and ridiculously foolish, and an easy way to get yourself in the back. Life was becoming a little boring anyway, Anko said with a shrug. How about a bottle of sake to celebrate? I don't drink, Naruto said with a shake of his head. Anko stared, waiting for the blonde to say he was joking, but he did not. You've been people since you were in the academy, and you're telling me that you can't drink. Naruto nodded. It isn't that I can't, I just don't. In time, the blonde said. You're strange, or perhaps are you one of those stuck-up brats? Naruto raised an eyebrow, his lips parted to say something, but he ended up just shaking his head. You're a lot different from Yugao or Kurenai. I wonder how you're able to get along, he said. I wouldn't mind doing something else with you, like eating. I'm also curious to see how the villagers will react upon seeing me walking with you. You like testing things, don't you? Naruto shrugged. It is important that I do, he said. He was just bored and he thought this would make things a little interesting. Ramen will do, yes, he added. The ramen was a place that was at least comfortable for him. Anko shook her head. No, she said. Dango. Naruto's house. Mikoto stood at the doorframe of the small study in Naruto's house, hands folded across her breast. The person she had come to see was looking through files, yet, there was a hint of boredom inside his eyes. The Uchiha wondered what she would do to pay off that boredom. Wasn't she doing enough? Well, Naruto was a special case, she needed to do more. What are you looking at? The Uchiha asked as she closed the door behind her. She stopped short of locking it before going on to settle on the chair in front of the desk. She would have preferred to sit on the desk, and face the blonde, but it would just be dangerous as Kushina or Yugao could walk in at any moment. Nothing in particular, Naruto said without looking at Mikoto. I thought perhaps I would be able to find something interesting if I just browse these files. Mikoto shook her head. I have something interesting for you, she said. Naruto looked up to the woman, a gesture showing she had his full attention. This was Mikoto he was talking to, surely when she said she had something interesting, it had to be interesting. I'm coming from a meeting with other clan heads, she said. Previously, I'd abstained from attending the meetings, but since Sasuke is back, I thought it would best to do so that when he does take over from me, he finds his seat all warmed up. Understandable, Naruto said with a small nod. When do you think you're going to relinquish your duties to him? He wasn't planning for that to be soon. Sasuke wasn't ready to lead anything, not less a clan. He had worked over his issues along with his brother, but he was still Sasuke. A bit childish at times, but he had grown. There was still a lot that he had to learn nevertheless. Not anytime soon, Mikoto said a bit firmly. Sasuke isn't like you. He is still a child despite everything. You stopped being a child many years ago. He must still accumulate so much in terms of experience and I must teach him a lot. I wouldn't ask you to teach him about leadership because I doubt your ways would be anyway clean. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the statement. He wasn't going to ask what she meant by that, he knew what she meant. I know certain things, I have taken it in myself to learn many aspects about life because the knowledge might become useful in the future. If the Uzumaki clan does get off, who is going to lead it? My mother would not, so I must. There is a game of politics, I can play it. Because you think it is basically just a game of manipulation, Mikoto said. Naruto didn't deny that those were his thoughts. He had played that game with the Sandaime Hokage a lot and he was beaten thoroughly. Maybe he was missing the old man now. The third always knew how to keep things interesting and how to make his mind work overload in trying to come up with plans for counterattack. I won't deny that, he said. Sasuke can't play that kind of a game, Mikoto said. He is a bit too honest, emotional. He doesn't need to play it, Naruto stressed those words. I am here, and I will not be going anywhere. I will play it. That way my son becomes more like your puppet. It wasn't an accusation, but a statement. Naruto shook his head. You give me too much credit, and underestimate your son. Sasuke is difficult. Maybe, Mikoto said. Your name came up in the meeting. Caution was the subject at hand, but the Hokage didn't seem worried about much. I suspect that isn't the case though, but you seem to have a supporter in Shikaku. He appears to have an understanding of how a part of you thinks. Not surprising, Naruto said. Perhaps I must pay Shikamaru a visit. He did go all the way out to befriend me during academy days and I have missed some brain teases in a game of shogi. Mikoto shook her head. Hiashi doesn't like you, she said. But that is something for another day. She paused for a moment. What are you doing later on? I have a date with Ino, Naruto said. She insisted on it or else she would try to ruin things when Temari comes along with her brother tomorrow or just haunt me for the rest of my life. It had slipped Mikoto's mind that the Subaku siblings were coming over to the village tomorrow. How come she had forgotten about that? She shook her head. That wasn't important. What was important was Naruto was going out on a date. That is new, she said. I wasn't aware that you'd become so famous with the ladies. You have Yugao running rampant around here. There will be Temari, and now Ino. Ino has been a childhood friend. While I may not admit it to her, I was quite fond of her personality at least. That interest did wane when she turned out to be a mediocre of a kunoichi, but she has grown, Naruto responded calmly. That may be true, it has also reached my attention that you were seen around the village with a certain lady, Mitarashi Anko, to be precise, Mikoto said. I assume there is an ulterior motive behind that, but it still doesn't please me, the woman said in a somewhat strong tone. Why? Naruto asked, all in the name of curiosity. Why would it be a bother? At least if it was his mother, he could understand and he wouldn't even question it. He still doubted she would have a problem with it nevertheless. He assumed she would probably be happy, but with a wind of caution, of course. She would not want her dear son to become a serial womanizer. Mikoto stared at the blonde for a moment. Sometimes she forgot that Naruto was still somewhat dense, or maybe he just chose not to think about other people's emotions. You're with me, Naruto, and I will not allow for just any woman to take you away from me. Admittedly, I may be jealous because I'm not getting any younger and you have girls your age, who can keep up with your energy levels. She still did manage to smile at that despite the firmness of her tone. Naruto didn't give an immediate response. He first went through some thoughts before offering response. You speak as if I have any interest in women looking for that sort of thing, he said. While I will admit that the carnal pleasure is quite something, I still do not have any interest in seeking out women. My mother would like me to settle down one day and have a family, but I really do not see that happening. Mikoto smiled. A lot can change in years, Naruto, the woman said. Plus I plan to change you. I'm sad that we can't settle together. I would not mind calling you husband, the woman said with a laugh. Despite the words nearly making him frown, Naruto didn't look away from Mikoto. He wasn't frowning because he was repulsed by the thought. Mikoto was coming in with emotions and he did not have that. Well, actually, he didn't want to have that. It would change the way he does view things. He was comfortable in his little bottle. Opening up that door meant there would be the unexpected that he would experience. Naruto didn't want that. Yet, this was facing him and he knew that if his mother was going to stop worrying about him, or that she might die without having any grandchildren, he would have to change. Nevertheless, it was difficult to suddenly form that part in his heart, becoming normal, enjoying things like the monkeys do. He would be changed. Truthfully, Naruto wasn't just scared of that change, he didn't know if he was capable of having those emotions for other people. For so long now, he had accepted and tolerated, but the only person he had loved was his mother. Perhaps there had been something with Itachi. He did care for Mikoto, he truly did. She was becoming much of an important person as they days go by. Husband, Naruto mused. The thought could only bring Temari in mind. The blonde had been in the thought for quite some time, even before the invasion that was orchestrated by Orochimaru and his goons. He wasn't having those thoughts in these days anyway. My wants aside, Mikoto drew the words. It wouldn't hurt if you get another girl, even though I wouldn't like it. I do need someone to cover for me. I'm afraid it would create quite the scandal if this broke out and it would really jeopardize my friendship with your mother. Sasuke won't be happy either. So, we have to keep this between us, no matter what. I don't have those kind of thoughts at the moment, Naruto with mild indifference. Really, he wasn't planning on getting a woman in his life. There were other things to do, but then again, his mother would be asking questions if he doesn't do something. You should start having 'em, Mikoto said in firm tone. You're not planning on taking Ino to the Senju compound, are you? I mean later on after the date. Naruto just gave the woman a blank stare. She laughed with a shake of her head. What was she even asking? Naruto didn't have those kinds of thoughts. He was planning something much more complex and dangerous, even though he doesn't see the danger. Midnight, I will be waiting for you in my room. Training ground. Neji stared at Naruto with an expressionless look on his face. He could not quite match the indifferent look on Naruto's face though. The blonde Uzumaki was just staring back at him. He didn't look as if he was thinking about anything, but just looking. It was even possible that he was looking past him. He was being made to feel so insignificant. A little bit of a bothersome, but Neji didn't comment on it. Naruto-kun, it has been long, our last battle still floods my mind. I wish we can fight again so that I can test myself once again. Someone who is a master in taijutsu, Lee said happily. Guy-sensei had said the blonde was a master in taijutsu because of his movements, body language. That fight with him, who had sweat bee training, had been proof of it. Neji frowned when Lee spoke. He didn't understand why the green-clad was even here in the first place. He shouldn't have made the mistake of saying he was going to meet with Naruto after the training session when Guy had suggested they go out to eat together. He should have just said he had something to do. It had worked before and they had not asked any questions. Don't you get tired? Neji asked quietly, yet in a firm tone. You were just doing some ridiculous exercises with Guy-sensei. A normal person wouldn't be on his feet by now, but Lee was standing, and happily ready to go for another road. Lee wasn't a normal person, was he? This is a chance I cannot miss. Lee said with a shake of his head. Naruto beat me the last time. I want to see if he can still do it again. If I can't, then I have not progressed in my training at all. I must double, no triple my efforts. Neji shook his head. Don't interfere, he said sternly. I was hoping I'd be able to talk to you, but the weather isn't right. Naruto finally spoke since the two walked into the training ground. In any case, I am much more interested in seeing what you can do. I heard that you became Jonin before everyone else. Whether, Neji thought. He realized the blonde was talking about Lee. He probably wanted to talk about some sensitive matters. There could be time for that. Neither him nor the blonde were going to die or grow old tomorrow. Being impatient would not help anything. It would only complicate things. I can't spend much time here either, Neji said. Shall we get this over with, then? The Hyuga said, taking a stance. I was the first to become Jonin because of strength and intelligence that allowed me to better those I have faced. If you're going to pose a challenge, you will have to do better than you did against Sasuke. Naruto didn't offer a response, he merely motioned for the Hyuga to charge. Neji didn't need to get a second invitation to attack. He lunged towards the blonde, right hand glowing with chakra. The second he reached Naruto, both his feet landed gracefully without so much as picking dust as his right hand traveled towards the blonde's chest. Naruto's response was to grab Neji's hand with his left hand, with so much force that it came to a complete halt as Neji stared in surprise. No one should be able to grab his hand like that. The chakra on his right should have hit the chakra points on the hand if someone was doing as risky as that. Then why didn't it occur to Naruto? Normally, people try to avoid his strikes, they don't stand still and grab them. It was just suicidal as one strike could render them immobile. I have seen enough, Naruto said, not the least impressed. When you have a better attitude into battle, try to fight me again. At this state, I will break you. I'm not saying you're not skilled, but your attitude is wrong. Just because I didn't perform when facing Sasuke doesn't mean that it was the best I could do. Arrogance is poison to a shinobi, don't allow it to fool you, Hyug. Naruto pulled Neji closer before flicking him over his shoulder with so much force that the Hyuga couldn't stop despite being able to see it all happening. When Lee saw his teammate falling towards him, he held out both his hands and caught him. When he looked up, Naruto had already made the distance, his back still facing them. We will have a good sparring session some other day, Lee, but not today, Naruto said with a wave of his right hand as he walked away. Feeling slightly embarrassed, Neji forced Lee to let him go. I could have balanced myself and landed on my feet, the Hyuga said as he straightened up himself. Hokage office. Naruto was standing beside the window in the office, looking outside the village streets. He had his hands inside his pockets. It was for the first time in his many visits that he was standing in this location. It had been the coach, the chair, or just standing in front of the desk. This was Jiraiya's location, and the man was still sitting there next to him, but Naruto was ignoring the presence of the man. For the moment he was watching the streets at least. What do Koharu and Homura have against you? Tsunade asked the blonde Uzumaki. For as long as she has been Hokage, the two have been trying to do some damages into his reputation. It was apparent that they did not like him at all. They are just bitter that I got away with Kei Danzo, Naruto said calmly. I must be this dangerous person who cannot be allowed to move freely within the village. I committed treason by Ka sitting cage, there has to be punishment for that, but the majority of the clan heads decided against it because they knew a future under Danzo would be disastrous. It was a win-win situation for them. They didn't have to worry about anything as they had been allowed to have control over the village. With Danzo in charge, They would have been just bystanders and the man would have led the village into war within just weeks of taking the job. Your motives are questionable, Tsunade said. I want to hear from you, why did you do it? Naruto was silent for a few moments before responding. There has always been the assumption that the Sandaime Hokage was weak and unable to make the hard right decisions when it mattered, but that was false. Yes, he allowed Danzo to live even after the man tried to kill him, and many other things he did behind the Sandaime's back, but the old man was not weak. I know it firsthand, he was manipulative, cunning and hardened old man. The image of a soft old man who had turned senile because of peace suited him better because it allowed him to operate without anyone suspecting him of ill intentions. Danzo was just allowed to live because the Sandaime felt he was useful, as long as he was Hokage at least. Truly, with the events that unfolded after the old man died, Jiraiya could say that his sensei had remained the professor even after the wars. He had just gotten better with old age. His physical prowess may have faded with age, but his mental capabilities had just become wiser with the accumulated experiences. That still doesn't answer the question, Tsunade said. True, if you stopped there, it can be said that without the Sandaime Hokage, Danzo was no longer needed. You could even go as far as to say the Sandaime had given you the order, and with what Jiraiya told me, it wouldn't be hard to believe, but I want the truth. I already know it, but I want you to admit it to me. Naruto's eyes turned towards Tsunade for a moment before he looked back outside the office. It was for my safety and my mother's. I don't need to explain anything to you in detail. I'm sure Jiraiya has already told that from the beginning Danzo had always wanted me to be turned into the weapon. With him becoming Hokage, he would have tried. Your mother would not have wanted it, and knowing her, she would have fought. Danzo would not have hesitated to kill her if she was getting in the way. Considering how he worked, I'm sure he would have thought Keiha was the best option to get you to turn your attention towards Konoha, Tsunade said. Escaping was out of the options, Jiraiya added. Someone as smart as you would have considered all the possibilities. Tsunade sighed as she thought over things. Why do you want a free pass? I'm rather surprised that you have been willing to indulge me, the blonde said to Tsunade. Well, Kages always think about what is best for the village they led and the people they led. I'm nevertheless happy that you're willing to try things in this manner. I prefer it to be this way, which is why I will refrain from doing anything disastrous that would bring harm to Konoha. Surprising, Tsunade said, not fully convinced that the blonde would follow through his word. I try not to tell lies, Naruto said a bit firmly. I will omit some things there and then, but I tell the truth. Besides, I'm big on trust and I despise traitors. Of course he would become a traitor if it was convenient. He was that kind of a hypocrite. Still, he really hoped that things never reach that point. Then answer the question, Jiraiya said firmly. Before the blonde Uzumaki does answer the question, he first took them to other directions. Simple people would forget and think about what he was saying, but they were experienced shinobi, they would not be fooled easily. Still, Jiraiya doubted that Naruto was actually trying to fool them, it could simply be just out of habit. The shinobi world has always been mired with all that is bad. Actions of the past have resulted in so much pain and hatred. The hatred in this world just cannot seem to disappear, there is no end to it. In turn, it makes this world unsafe. A little action can set off a war, and people will die, just resulting in more pain and hatred. The cycle continues without an end. The elemental nations are at peace at the moment, because you have brought the balance of power with Bijuas, but what if you remove that balance? What will happen? The Akatsuki is after the Bijuas. Say, if either Kumo or Iwa lose both their Jinchurikis, do you think that they will hesitate to try to get other villages Bijuas? To them it would be out of self-preservation. Without the weapons, they will feel exposed and will hunt wherever they can to clothe themselves. Of course, the other villages will not sit back and allow them to do as they please, even Kasagakure, which has a Jinchuriki, will not sit back. A war for Bijuas will occur. I don't want such an unsafe world. True, everything in this village can turn peaceful, but if the world outside is unsafe, there will always be the fear. The hidden leaf isn't exactly innocent, so if anything happens, it will be dragged along. I want to keep the balance. After a long minute of silence after Naruto had spoken, Jiraiya responded. But not for the good of the world, for your own selfish reason of keeping your mother safe. Kushina has traveled, I'm sure she enjoys the experience. With the outside world unsafe, there is no guarantee that she will be safe, especially since she is your mother. For both of you to be safe, the world outsiders to be safe. Naruto nodded. I had considered the thought of a world without other nations and villages, just Konoha. In that way, you guarantee safety. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. Why go that far? You don't care about this world, yet you do something that would benefit it. Naruto wondered if the man thought of what he had just said. The message left unsaid was that he had thought of destroying other villages just for Konoha to remain the only village. If the man gave that a thought, he would not have asked such a question. When the population is low, it was easy to control things and manage them. But something like that would need a massive plan that was just full of B. If he put his mind to it, Naruto could plant the seeds for a B war, but that was the thing he wanted to avoid. Naruto had only dropped the D because it would only make his mother sad. Yes, he would need to get his hands dirty. The world would notice and Kushina would become the mother of that thing. Naruto could not have that, hence his current thoughts. Jiraiya, the bitter truth in this world is that you cannot protect everything that is precious to you. In this world, you will always be forced to make a sacrifice, a choice between two things. There are situations that will force you to choose between left and right. The invasion taught me that I am a mere mortal, I am not omnipresent. This is why I want to avoid those situations. We may not want to think about it, but we have limits, we can protect something, but not everything. But we have friends, the village has an army to make up for that. We cannot be everywhere, but we cannot put different people into different locations to protect what is precious to us, Tsunade said in a firm tone. I do see your point nevertheless. It is much better to stop a situation than allowing it to develop when you know you may not be able to stop it once it does occur, and even if you do manage to stop it, you won't escape it in one piece. Naruto looked at Tsunade as he spoke. When you make that decision to position your pieces, how do you decide? It is based on importance. Not all pieces will be equally powerful and not all places will be equally important. Tsunade frowned but she refused to comment. Naruto smiled. You don't have to answer it, the blonde said with a shrug. This is just one of the flaws of the world we live in. When there is imperfection, there will be inequality and things will occur in that manner. For someone who is indifferent to life, you really know a lot about this world, Tsunade said. I'm not indifferent, if I was, I would not have bothered to understand it, Naruto paused. Then, do I pass your test, Hokage-sama? I have to say, this leaves an unfamiliar click in my tongue, I only called the Sandaime, Hokage, when I wasn't pleased, the blonde said with a shake of his head. Nara compound. Naruto was still playing the game in the same way that he played the last time they played, but of course this time there was something slightly different but the principle was still the same. Shikamaru wasn't the one playing against the blonde Uzumaki, his father was. The Nara was just watching the two play the game. You're not playing to win, Shikaku said to Naruto. It can be dangerous if your opponent discovers it, it can be used against you. When you're not playing to win, you're mostly defending and your actions are just responsive, which means you don't dictate the flow of the battle. Naruto knew that he was a bit controlling in a battle after all. He would never fight a fight he had no control over, even if the control was just a little, it was enough. With enough space, he could get an opening to make a move. It was a matter of knowing how to utilize your weapons. Sometimes attack is the best form of defense, Naruto said calmly. When in a battlefield, you must be flexible. This will allow you to adapt to the changes and surprises. If you enter with just one strategy, you will fall. Strategies can be foiled, no matter how impenetrable they appear. I prefer to move on my own terms, but I make allowances in case there is no other way. Shikaku stared at the board for a long minute. Truly, the blonde was still moving his pieces in the way he liked, not because he was being forced to make movements. In the way he had positioned, he could switch into attack with just 3 moves. It would be risky for him because he gives you a false hope that he is only going to defend and when you least expect it, he hits you with a sucker punch. When you do not make allowances, you won't be able to counter for the surprises, Shikaku finally responded. Flexibility. Yes. It is fundamental for every shinobi. Our world is unpredictable and if you think you know everything, you only put on the mask of arrogance. The Nara paused for a moment as he looked up at Naruto. He turned back to the board before speaking again. How was your meeting with the Hokage? She gave me what I wanted. I think we may be able to forge an understanding, Naruto said calmly. That is at least good to hear, Shikaku said. They would be able to avoid unwanted conflicts that way and things could turn out for the better. They just had to make sure the mutual understanding lasted for as long as both were active. He understood that there would be tense moments every now and then, but the understanding would help them overcome that. This world wasn't perfect and the people living in it were not perfect, so every now and then there would be differences and conflicts. What differentiated a person from the other was how they dealt with those conflicts. How was your stay in the Hokage seat? Just troublesome, Shikaku said with a tired sigh. At least Hiashi was able to do most work. The man's tone changed slightly. You should be careful with him. Despite everything, he still does have a pull and influence in the village. He is normally fair and rational, but I don't know what has tainted him. In any case, just keep a watchful eye. Naruto nodded, but said nothing about it. The rest of the game was played in silence until Shikaku claimed the victory, a hard-fought victory. The man let loose of a long breath. He suddenly looked worn out. Your father was a good person and he loved this village dearly. Perhaps we are at fault for failing to ensure that you enjoyed a rich childhood. We did take measures, allowing you to leave the village to escape the resentment and not allowing Danzo to get close, but I still feel as if we have failed. The Sandaime was right there and assured us he would do everything to keep you here and happy, but I guess not everything went according to plan. In any case, we do think that Minato made you a Jinchuriki for a reason. We do not know, but I'm sure your mother knows, and we'd like to see you walk in the same light as your father. It might not be impractical, but we do have that hope. The third is no longer here. If you need anything, let us know. Shikaku said that before walking away. Naruto understood whom this, we, included. He wasn't going to comment on it, there was no need. This very same man told Shikamaru to befriend him when they were still at the academy. The young Nara had been honest enough to tell him that. Naruto turned to Shikamaru before speaking. I have spent much more time than I had planned, he said. I will walk you out, Shikamaru said as he stood up. I heard Ino say you agreed to go out with her later on, the Nara said as the two walked side by side, leaving the compound. Yes, Naruto said. It wasn't by choice. Shikamaru managed to smile. Well, Ino is a troublesome woman. She has become worse these days since she takes her life as a kunoichi seriously. She can even be quite devious at times. Naruto appeared to think about it for a few moments before responding. I'm used to it. When we were younger she used to resort to blackmail for me to do what she wanted. I will agree with you when you say she is a troublesome woman, but admittedly she was the only one who kept me company. Shikamaru looked up into the sky for a few moments before looking back at the road ahead of him. He wanted to say that Ino had been mad and sad at the same time that Naruto had left the village. No, according to her, he had abandoned her. Still, he was happy to know that Naruto did value her, despite being rough on her. Perhaps it was because he knew she could handle it. Naruto certainly knew Ino better than he did. The two had been friends long before the academy. They were introduced to each other when they were still younger, and with Ino's personality, they had made a great match. Ino was the only one who could force the blonde to do certain things. He could not. He would have been too lazy to try anything. The Nara decided against revealing secrets. If Ino wanted Naruto to know, she would tell him. He wasn't going to get involved in matters of the two. It would only be troublesome if he got involved anyway. She does rant about it every now and then, Shikamaru said with an image of a ranting Yamanaka. I was curious when my father said I should befriend you, but I decided against trying to find out why because I figured it would be something bothersome, taking into account how the villagers used to treat you. The Nara smiled, a shake of his head before speaking. Honestly, I never expected you to be the son of the Yondaime Hokage, Konoha's greatest hero. It was almost bitterly ironic that the son of the village's most loved Kage became the village's most hated. Ironic. Perhaps, Naruto said. Humans are interesting creatures. They resent what they do not understand and chose to believe whatever it is that makes them feel better even if it means ignoring the truth. Perhaps it was this attitude that made me believe. Low lives who could follow such an irrational thought were nothing more than low-life creatures. Shikamaru didn't offer an immediate response. Naruto's attitude as seeing himself some sort of nobility wasn't because he had known he was the son of the Yondaime Hokage. This didn't seem to have a meaning in Naruto's life. The Nara was discovering that it was because Naruto saw himself as a better person than him. He was different in every way. How long has Ino known? Along the line, but it had no bearing on how she viewed me, Naruto said, knowing that Shikamaru was talking about the Kyuubi. Well, it wasn't that he would have cared if things had turned the other way around. He would not have, because if she had changed opinions, she would have been thrown in the same boat as the villagers, meaning, she would have become nothing more than a monkey. Well, Ino is smart when she wants to be, Shikamaru said. Speaking of being smart, Naruto said, I have a proposal for you. Shikamaru seemed to groan at that before he responded calmly, I hope it isn't anything troublesome, he said. Before refusing, he would have to know what the blonde wanted him to do. Well, it would depend on whether he could do it or not. Tsunade values you as a Jonin of the Hidden Leaf, not to mention you are the heir of the Nara clan, Naruto started calmly. Konoha will be interacting with Sunagakure a lot in the coming months and years. The two villages will be trying to form a strong relationship. I am at the center of it all. It isn't just my proposed marriage to Temari. Naturally, there will be someone needed to hold diplomatic talks with Suna. Normally, Hokage-sama would have to make that decision, but considering that the Kazekage is still young, and that you're at the center of it, you want someone who can speak on the same level with them while also keeping your interests intact, Shikamaru deduced. Well, it will keep me away from troubling battles. When do I begin? Tomorrow. The Sand siblings will be here by noon, you will welcome them. Hey, Shikamaru said, coming to a halt, his tone was a little high. That is so sudden. Naruto's house. I wasn't expecting you to be home at this time of the day, Naruto said to Yugao. It felt strange just saying that. Home. To Yugao. Yes, this was her home now, but it had not always been like this. It had been just him and his mother, but now there were a couple of people warming up to their family. It was difficult, but Naruto was doing all right to accommodate the change. His mother was most happy when things were like this, so he could not complain much. Besides, he did trust Yugao with his mother's safety. Even when he wasn't present, she could hold on to protect his mother before he does make his round to rescue them, if possible. I have nothing better to do, Yugao said, taking her feet off the coffee table. Well, the man of the house was back, she needed to behave. She closed the book she was reading as her eyes followed the blonde. Naruto sat down across her. For a moment, the expression on his face reflected tiredness. A busy day. Not at all, Naruto said. But I have been going around doing a lot of talking. There was a lot to think about, but not too much. Yugao nodded and checked around the house. She was sure that Kushina was not home yet, but should be returning soon. The woman had said she was only going to do something and she would be back soon because she had something to discuss with Naruto. I thought Mikoto-san would be keeping you busy, Yugao said in a strange tone. Naruto stared at the woman for a long minute before asking, what are you talking about? If she had something to say to him, she should go ahead and do so. Besides, when has she gone around the bushes to tell him something? What you are doing with her when nobody is looking, Yugao said. When you were doing it, were people looking? Naruto responded calmly. Yugao paused to think about that picture Naruto was trying to paint in her head. She would never do something like that, and Naruto knew that, but he was just saying to because that seemed to the point in her statement. She sighed. Try reasoning with a genius. The blonde Uzumaki could come up with ways to counter any logical thought she brought to his attention. Of course, not. I wasn't doing it for show or one of those smut movies, Yugao said firmly. But you're not denying anything. Nor am I admitting anything, Naruto said with a shrug of his shoulders. You appear to be invested in this idea you have in your mind, Yugao. If I'm not mistaken, you brought Mikoto's intentions to me before we even left Konoha, and now you still have those words. Does it bother you? By that question, do you admit it? Just answer my question, Naruto said. Maybe a little, but it isn't my business. You're not a child. I can't think for you, and I know you have been making decisions of your own even when you were just a little kid. Still, Yugao paused, giving Naruto a stern look. What are you planning with her? She is as old as your mother is, you can't be surely thinking of marrying her, I know for sure she is serious. Naruto gave the woman look before responding. What do you suggest, Yugao? Would you rather take her place? My mother wouldn't complain if I was sleeping with you instead. Yugao tried to say something, but no words came out. She was honestly shocked that he would say something like that with straight face even though he was Uzumaki Naruto. How could he suggest something like that? Well, his mother would not complain, the age gap between her and Naruto could not count for much, and she was already family. Nothing would change, well, she would be calling Kushina, mother. Yugao smiled warmly at the thought. Naruto tilted his head to the side. Does it please you? Yugao's eyes snapped towards Naruto. She realized he was talking about her thoughts and flushed slightly. I was thinking about a fond memory that doesn't include you, the woman said, quick to say. I was thinking of rewarding you for seeing something that I was not able to see, Naruto said, his eyes facing the ceiling. But I can't decide on the gift. In any case, keep things to yourself. Mikoto will probably go all the way Sharingan on you if you talk too much. She might look gentle, but she is a retired jonin. Yugao got the feeling that Naruto wasn't just saying that just to scare her, but he was serious. I will keep that in mind, she said. But do use protection, Naruto. It would be a disaster if you ended up knocking her up. Ha, Yugao smiled, before the smile turned into laughter. Nothing. Never mind, she said with a shrug of her shoulders. I thought you said you were going to be busy once you returned to the village. But so far, you have remained grounded, no missions, no talk about going out of the village. It would be pointless to try to root out the problems outside when there are many glaring in the inside, Naruto said calmly. Konoha must be secure enough for me to say I can leave for a number of days without having to worry about anything with regards to my mother's safety. You know you have me for that, Yugao said with a smile. If the problem is too much, this house is secure, and if anything, I can summon you quickly. You don't even have to worry about the villages. They have settled, perhaps by your actions during that invasion, but things are all good. Is that what you think? Naruto asked. What do you think would happen if suddenly, someone decides to say that I was involved in the Uchiha incident, and was responsible for Danzo's deaths? The villages already have history of resentment towards the Uzumaki. With a snap, they can return to their old ways. Yugao frowned at the thought. It was easy to hate something that you have hated before. They did not have to learn to resent Naruto, they already knew how. Well, that would be a disaster, she said. That is why you are going all around trying to make friends. Naruto nodded. Just in case, I am unable to avoid a complete disaster, it would be a great help if there are people in my corner. Being completely alone would surely result in me abandoning the leaf because we would not be able to continue living here. It would not be so bad because I have made provisions in case something like that occurs. Yugao smiled. Well, you always have things planned up, she said. I admire that sort of thing about you, yet it scares me at the same time. Neither Jiraiya nor Hokage-sama really understand how far your thinking goes. The Sandaime Hokage was the only other person who understood fully. It should not scare you, Naruto said. My mother likes you and it would be crippling to my heart if I had evil intentions for you, the blonde said calmly. Speaking of which, Kushina walked through, holding plastic bags. She greeted before hurriedly going to the kitchen to place the bags on the table there. Once done, she returned to the living room. She sat beside Yugao and faced Naruto. It is good that you are here, she said. Naruto is going out on a date tonight with Ino, he needs advice. Yugao raised an eyebrow at this. When Naruto's expression didn't change, she smiled. Oh, she mouthed, slightly surprised. It may have been an act. Isn't this wonderful? Naruto stared deep into the eyes of the woman who was fooling around. You sound overly excited, he said. I'm just happy that you're starting to show interest in women, Yugao said with a knowing smile. There had been a hint of sarcasm in her tone, and she had specifically chosen the word, woman, on purpose. Naruto saw through it all but he refused to indulge her. I don't really need advice, mother, the blonde said turning towards his mother. I can do this just on my own. I have known Ino all my life, I should be able to handle this. I did handle Temari just fine. Yugao could not help herself by say, and you have been handling Mikoto just fine as well. Kushina nodded as if she knew what Yugao was talking about. But this is different, Naruto. You don't see Mikoto and I in the same you see Ino. Well, if you were normal, you'd see her as beautiful girl who makes you feel differently. The woman refused to use the right word. If only you knew what he does with Mikoto, Yugao thought. There is nothing to worry about, mother, Naruto stressed the words. I can handle it. True, emotions do confuse me at times, but that is because I had in the past restricted myself from feeling other things to just care for you as my mother. Kushina nodded. I know, she said. Are you really sure you don't need help? I have been in love, Yugao as well. If you're embarrassed to talk to it with me, you can talk to Yugao or Mikoto. She is already giving him plenty of lessons, Yugao almost said loudly, but she held herself. I have never been embarrassed to talk to you about anything, mother, Naruto said. In case there are things that I cannot understand, I will come to you. Experience is also the best teacher. Learning through experiences will teach me many things. Besides, if I am guided, I'm never going to have those stupid memories you have with father. At the thought, Kushina smiled. Well, you make a reasonable argument, she said. But don't do anything, okay? After the date, take her home and return. Naruto nodded. He didn't say anything because he was going through some thoughts, the things he felt when he was with Mikoto. But if he brought those emotions out to play, his mother would be suspicious and she would ask a lot of questions. He didn't want to sin by lying to his mother. It was best to keep it to himself. Well, there was Yugao. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.